Key, please.
She doesn't remember. 3 words: clean, sympathetic, and completely unchallenged by the documentary.
Mackenzie says she doesn't remember. Now, the fallout
That just broke Netflix viewership records. Think of that film as a courtroom where only one side showed up. The camera rolled, the tears fell, the narrative landed. And somewhere in the Cuyahoga County trial record, 5 pieces of this story sat untouched.
you didn't see in this documentary. It's a really good documentary, but I was surprised that there were some parts of the evidence that prosecutors laid out in the trial that didn't make it into the movie. So let's dive into how we got to this point. Mackenzie Shirilla was
Unaired and unexplained. Before we go deeper into what the documents actually show, make sure you're subscribed to Real Court Case Verdict, because we don't just cover the story, we follow the evidence. Here is detail number 1 the film left out: cell phone location data. Prosecutors presented evidence showing Mackenzie Shirilla's
regularly used marijuana, but prosecutors argued because she often smoked weed that it wasn't something that would have impaired her and led to her putting her foot on the gas, as the black box in the car showed, and flooring it into a wall at 100 miles per hour. Prosecutors say she was not impaired at the time of this crash. As Mackenzie was recovering
at the specific location where she would later drive a car into a concrete wall at 100 miles per hour. The prosecution argued she had been there before. The documentary never mentions this, not once. The evidence doesn't disappear because the camera didn't film it.
And I was surprised they didn't, because it was a key piece of evidence for prosecutors in the murder trial. And that evidence is now in the vehicle. Police found a weed pen, a bong, and multiple...
Detail number 2, the black box. The car's event data recorder showed 0 braking, not a reduction in speed, not a tap. The gas pedal was pressed to the floor and it stayed there. That is not consistent with someone who blacked out. It is consistent with intent. The documentary references the crash, but never lingers on what that recorder told investigators in cold, mechanical, irrefutable terms. Detail number 3, the modeling agency emails. While Mackenzie publicly presented herself as a grieving girlfriend, prosecutors introduced evidence that she and her mother had contacted a Los Angeles modeling agency within weeks of the crash. Not a passing inquiry, documented emails entered into the trial record.
Shortly after the crash, Strongsville police were notified that they had received concerning emails from the community that the defendant and her mother were seeking employment with the Los Angeles modeling agency. Mackenzie Shirilla said to Vitali, "Thank you for the comment. I would love to work with you guys. I've been emailing you guys a lot. Such a great opportunity. Thank you."
A classmate shared this text message with investigators that shows Shirilla asking for him to go get pictures of her from Dominic's room so she could put them in Dominic's casket at his funeral so, quote, "he can be with me forever."
A classmate also handed investigators a text message in which Mackenzie asked for photographs from Dominic's room to place in his casket so he could, in her words, be with her forever. Prosecutors argued this was not grief. It was performance.
The police were provided additional videos of the defendant from her wheelchair as she attended a concert down in the Flats. And again, Your Honor, I'm introducing these to the court to show the shocking lack of remorse. This was something that was being exhibited while the investigation was still going on, before she was charged and arrested in November of last year. And these were the sort of things that were coming to the police, and the shocking lack of remorse, coupled with the fact that the defendant was reported driving an automobile shortly after this event, that she was...
The documentary does not walk viewers through any of this. Now, ask yourself this. If evidence presented at a public murder trial, sworn testimony, a full record, a judge who reviewed every exhibit, if that evidence is systematically absent from a documentary seen by millions, who is actually shaping public understanding of guilt and innocence right now? Because the answer to that question matters far beyond this case. The evidence doesn't disappear because the camera didn't film it.
Prosecutors would point to the black box of the car she was driving, showing that the gas was pressed down to the floor. There was no effort to brake whatsoever. Here is video of Mackenzie's dad showing up at the police station. Here's what he says to authorities.
Detail number 4. The appeal was not denied on the merits. The film states that Mackenzie's appeal was denied. What it does not clearly explain is that the appeal was rejected because it was filed 1 day past the legal deadline. Her attorneys argued it was a leap year. The court disagreed. That means no appellate court has ever ruled on whether the evidence of intent was sufficient. That door closed on a procedural technicality, not a substantive verdict.
That Mackenzie meant to kill Russo and Flanigan. But then in March of this year, her appeal was rejected, and it wasn't based on the facts of the case. It was denied because it was filed too late. And in March, an appeals court said they were not going.
A complete documentary would have presented that completely.
Mackenzie opted for a judge to decide her innocence or guilt, not a jury. And that judge found Mackenzie guilty on 12 charges: 4 counts of murder, 4 counts of felonious assault, 2 counts of aggravated vehicular homicide, 1 count of drug possession, and 1 count of possessing criminal tools. At sentencing, this is what Mackenzie said.
Detail number 5. 12 counts. Mackenzie Shirilla was not convicted of 1 charge. A judge, not a jury, found her guilty on 12 separate counts after reviewing every piece of evidence under the standard of beyond a reasonable doubt. 4 counts of murder, 4 counts of felonious assault, 2 counts of aggravated vehicular homicide, drug possession, possessing criminal tools. The documentary's wrongful conviction framing never seriously With the scope of that verdict, the evidence doesn't disappear because the camera didn't film it.
There's only one person who's responsible for the pain of everyone in this room, and that person is you, Mackenzie. Nobody else is responsible. This isn't the fault of Dominic's family, or DaVon's family, or your family. And I know that each of you have asked your questions to yourselves, what if? What if I had done this or that? The truth of it is, none of us can control the intentions of another. And when there is a purposeful intent to harm or kill someone, it is the perpetrator alone who bears the responsibility for the choice and the consequences and the harm that follows.
Mackenzie Shirilla is currently serving 15 years to life.
There's a very good likelihood, Mackenzie, that you will spend the rest of your life in prison. That won't be up to me. That will be up to the parole board, and that will be up to you to a great extent. I understand that the pain in this room wants me to impose the harshest sentence. But I don't believe that would be the appropriate sentence, because I do believe that Mackenzie will not be out in 15 years.
Her earliest parole consideration falls around 2038.
That she could be released on parole when she's roughly 34 years old, which would be in 2038. However, again, it is also possible that she spends the rest of her life in prison. That will do it for On the Case, presented by Law and Crime.
Her father was placed on administrative leave.
This week, he was placed on administrative leave because of, quote, poor judgment. According to local media outlet Cleveland 19 News, Mary Queen of Peace School reportedly sent this following email to parents, quote, "Dear Mary Queen of Peace School parents, families, and guardians, we are investigating allegations made on social media that one of our teachers has demonstrated poor judgment. Upon learning of the allegation, the school acted immediately and placed the teacher on administrative leave. The investigation is ongoing. We want every parent and family to know that the safety, well-being, and trust of our students remain among our highest priorities. We take all student concerns seriously and are committed to responding promptly and responsibly whenever concerns are brought forward. While we are limited in what we can share during an active personnel investigation, please know we are reviewing the matter and will provide additional communication as appropriate."
From his Cleveland teaching position following the documentary's release, her parents say she is innocent. The families of Dominic Russo and DaVon Flanigan live with the verdict every single day. The Cuyahoga County Court of Common Pleas case file is publicly available, Search State of Ohio v. Mackenzie Shirilla. Read the prosecution's closing argument in full. Then come back and answer this in the comments. After reading what the documentary skipped, does the narrative the film built still hold up for you? If this gave you something the documentary didn't, like this video, share it with someone who watched the film, subscribe to the Real Court Case Verdict, and turn on notifications. Every case, every detail, all the evidence.